All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Boot Up the LSU Basketball Podcast, season number 4 of Boot Up the LSU Basketball Podcast. I can't believe we're already 4 seasons into this. It's been so much fun to do so far, and what better way to start off season 4 than to be joined by the legend, the man, the myth himself. I kind of said that out of order, but it's Kent Lowe. It's LSU basketball's long-serving SID and now Hall of Famer. Kent, first of all, congratulations on being in the Hall of Fame. How was the ceremony? I know you and I have talked about it for those listening. How much fun was it to be a part of that experience?
It's really amazing to be on the other side of it after having produced the television show for so many years, but it was a lot of fun. It's a very humbling honor, and we're going to do it again here in about 6 weeks when we get back on schedule and induct the 21 class, which will include Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf from LSU basketball. So it should be another great ceremony. It was a lot of fun. I'm very honored to be a member of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame.
Well, Kent, you're certainly deserving, and as is Mahmoud and all the many entrants over there at the Sports Hall of Fame. I was actually driving through Natchitoches this past weekend and saw the sign on the interstate and was tempted to get off, but I had children in the back seat that were dying to get home from Arkansas. So we decided not to stop, but next time I'm up in there, I'll grab a meat pie and swing on by. Okay, so of course the purpose of today's show is to talk about the NBA draft, and I figured, Kent, you'd be a great person to bring on, both with your experience with LSU basketball over 30 years now, I guess, and all the drafts that you've seen from Shaq's to Ben Simmons to of course now Cam Thomas is going to be in the draft, at the draft, in the green room. But the history goes back. But I want to focus on, of course, this year's group of eligible draftees. Before I do that, though, I do want to talk about the success that LSU's had in the NBA recently. And you could talk about Ben Simmons, number 1 pick, all that stuff. I think people see that and it's pretty obvious. But you've also had some guys, whether they were undrafted, like a Naz Reid, who's now really carved a nice that's probably understating it, carved a nice niche out. He's going to get a lot of money on his next contract. He's established himself as a very successful player. I saw Tremont Waters is, we've seen his success in Boston. I think he'll have a chance to maybe move to another team this year or extend with Boston. But you've had guys throughout the league. And then, of course, Skylar Mays with the playoff run this year with the Hawks. So, when I was growing up, Kent, and you were in the heyday of your SID work here at LSU, it was kind of an NBA guy here, an NBA guy there. But now there's really getting to be some consistent productivity from guys coming from LSU going to the next level.
Well, I think we've had some guys, Cody, who have proven you can make the league through different ways. Garrett Temple is certainly an example in one way because he had several years of 10-day contracts with different teams that would eventually for the rest of the year, and then the process would start all over again until he finally hooked up with Washington and Sacramento. This past year, he played for the Chicago Bulls, and he's turned that into 11 years of NBA service, which I think is quite amazing. Tremont and Skylar were second-round draft picks who proven to be able, through the two-way contract, to make their mark in the NBA. And Naz, as you mentioned, undrafted, played well in the summer league, and that gave him a shot to sign a very good contract with Minnesota that, you're right, is going to lead to better contracts down the road. And even if all 3 of these guys are not drafted Thursday night, there is an outlet for them to continue working to be in the league as early as this coming season.
Yep, and that can be a more difficult road to navigate. But when you have guys who have navigated it before, I mean, Garrett Temple's around here working out all the time. Those guys all have relationships with each other, from Skylar and Javonte, or Tremont and Javonte. All those guys know each other. They can have those conversations and help navigate that road that can be difficult, make it a little bit easier. And it is difficult, but it's less difficult than it used to be. I think there is more of a path for guys who aren't drafted or aren't drafted in the first round to make their way in the league as the G League gets more robust. You saw the news with the Pelicans, with the Birmingham Squadron, which is just a fantastic mascot.
Yes.
I didn't realize that a group of Pelicans was called a squadron. Is that true? Or did I get tricked by the internet? I think that might be true.
I don't know on that. I will have to research that.
Okay. I saw it on Twitter, so it must be true. But there is a path there, and those guys can see it now. And so I'm sure whatever happens, and I would think that Javonte and Trendon have a very good shot of getting drafted. I'll start by asking you about Cam Thomas, because he's the guy that's going to be there in the green room and has a chance to go really high. I've seen mock drafts with him in the top 10. I've seen him in the middle of the first round. I know as a Pelicans fan, or I guess I would call myself a Pelicans fan. I'm not a hardcore fan, but watch the Pelicans all the time. I've seen them kind of linked there, teams that need a scorer. What's your insight on Cam and as he's preparing for this process? And I know last year was strange because of COVID and the limitations, but he came in, he got his work done, he worked hard, he put his head down, and he had this focus. We've had, Ken, you've worked with guys that come in and they're one and done, and they can, or even two and done, and they can be range all over the place depending on their personalities, on what they prioritize. Cam just seemed like a guy who came in and was on a mission, and just so focused and regimented, and really had a big picture view on where he wanted to go, and stuck with that from day one.
The thing is that from day one, Coach Wade said, this kid is coming in, and he told the media, told me, this kid is a prolific scorer. And you and I have heard that before about other players, not only at LSU, but everywhere else in this league. And sometimes they are, sometimes not. This kid was everything that he was advertised to be. Could shoot from distance, drive to the goal. More impressively, could drive to the goal, get fouled, and make free throws. And I think that was something that was different to see as this year went on. I think that if a team needs a shooter, needs some scoring from outside, Cam's going to fit their bill. And I don't believe the NBA would have brought him to the draft if there hadn't been some teams that told them that he was going to be one of the top first-round draft choices in that first 20, 25 picks. If that happens for him, we all want the best for all these players that they can get. And I'd love to see him, as high as possible, join that group of first-round draft picks that LSU has had.
Yeah, just, you look at his stats, and they're almost unprecedented what he did. But you talked about the ability to get to the free throw line, and I think that really – it's such an underrated skill at this level. It is not an underrated skill at the next level. That is something that NBA teams are constantly looking for. And I was looking at KenPom, and they do – one of the stats that KenPom does is these player comparisons, and they basically – crunch all the numbers and spit out guys who are very similar. And it was interesting that Cam's most similar players were Jamal Murray when he was at Kentucky, who obviously has become a very successful scorer at the next level. Malik Monk at Kentucky, who was a very, very high draft pick. Gary Harris is on here. Tyrese Maxey is on here. So it was interesting to see that, but at the same time, you can compare him to those guys, and yet he went to the free throw line 220 times last year. That's more than anybody on this list by at least 40. So the free throw rate was in the 40s. No one else is even over 37. I mean, it's just that skill set at college. You look at 3-point percentage. You look at field goal percentage and all this stuff. And I think Cam is going to improve there when he's maybe not the guy that has to. Well, not has to take so many shots, but is the clear focal point of the offense. If he becomes a second option, a third option, a bench scorer, you'll see those efficiency numbers tick up in those regards while he's still getting to the free throw line and making a ton of free throws, because to make a long point short, or to make a short point long here, that's the key to efficiency. Everyone talks about efficient offensive basketball. There is no more efficient place than the free throw line. If you go to the free throw line, you get, let's say you get 2 shots every attempt. If you're a 90% shooter like he is, that's 1.8 points per possession. That's insane efficiency. That's off the chart. So he's incredibly good at getting to the free throw line, making free throws. And I just feel like that's a skill that maybe at the college level, it's easy to overlook because it's not exciting. It's not going to be on the highlight reels on ESPN, right? But it's so, so valuable.
The key is, though, he gets to the line, but he gets to the line and then cashes in. There's some players who get to the line and don't cash in and can't cash in as regularly as someone like Cam did this past year. It was a pleasure to watch. You can see the influence of his mom and his work ethic, and I think that will pay off for him somewhere in a very nice NBA career.
Yeah, great story from Mark Spears at The Undefeated that you can check out at The Undefeated. LSU basketball Twitter's account retweeted it. There's a written story and a video story. I recommend both of them highly. Let's talk about Javonte Smart now. Javonte, I remember it clear as day, the day that he committed. I was working radio over at the Guarantee Studios and had his high school coach on. And I remember just thinking what a big deal it was because, Will had just gotten started at LSU, and it was the first kind of jolt of energy that the program had gotten after his hire. And to see him go from that moment to where he is now, the growth that Javonte has made as an individual, I think very much mirrors the growth of the program and the consistency that the program's had. And Kent, the stats better than I do, but LSU's the winningest team in the SEC over the last 3 seasons. I don't think it's a coincidence that those 3 seasons were seasons where Javonte Smart was on the roster.
Well, that's I would agree with that. And I think when all is said and done, he ended up one of the most underrated point guards in the SEC. I mean, he had some spectacular games. He did some things that, we haven't seen consistently in a long time from a point guard. And his ability to score and pass the ball made him a very valuable commodity for this team. He's worked out for a lot of teams, and we'll just have to see how it all plays out in that second round. Things happen, you have to see where the influx of foreign players is coming from in this draft and what the opportunities are. But if there's a team who needs a solid point guard in their roster somewhere, then they would not be hurting by drafting Javonte.
I'm not a draft expert. I know that the NBA, values length and size, height, athleticism, all that stuff. And I don't know where Javonte tests out on all that stuff. But when I look at Javonte, this is kind of an off-the-wall comparison. I think of Fred VanVleet and the ability to be a guard who makes big shots and maybe isn't going to have – and Javonte's bigger than Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet's 6 foot flat. Javonte is a good 6'4". He's strong. He's physical. But the ability to make shots from the point guard position, I think, tends to get underrated in the draft. And you mentioned that word, underrated, with Javonte. But, man, he can make shots. He's breaking records at these workouts that he's putting in. And, look, the NBA today is all about being able to make shots, and he can do it. And I just feel like it's such an exciting fit. Similarly, with Trendon Watford, maybe a different path than Javonte. All these guys have their own different paths. Trendon's got the measurables. He's got the size. He's got the skill set. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how he fits in the modern game, because you could even go back to, just a few years ago when you have Jarrell Martin and Jordan Mickey in the same draft and how much the big position has changed since then. Trendon has the size of those guys, but he's got the skill set of a point guard and the ability to pass, the ability to create off the dribble. And what I was really impressed with Trendon is he seemed to play his best basketball as the season went on and had a big SEC tournament. Made some huge plays in that SEC tournament, seemed to enjoy the big stage. And so I know he's working out a bunch too. Really excited to see what his path will be, because I think with that skill set and that ability, he's got a chance to make an impact at the next level.
I think you're right. The best thing that Trendon Watford did was come back for his sophomore season. He got that input from NBA people and those who you talk to when you go out and don't hire an agent. But I think him coming back for a sophomore year at LSU has given him a chance to be drafted Thursday night. And that's what we're going to be watching for, and certainly hope for the best for him. But even if some reason he's not, there's going to be a team that will put him on their summer league roster very quickly and give him that chance to show that talent in the summer league that could lead then right into a roster spot for the 21-22 season.
It's gonna be an exciting day on Thursday for the draft. What are your plans, Kent? I know Will's going up to New York. You couldn't get on that plane with him?
No, I will be at the computer here, either at the office or the house, and with our Madison from Creative and our social person, and we'll all be camped out, ready to roll when things begin to happen. And we're hoping they happen much sooner than later on Thursday night. It's 2 rounds only is the NBA draft compared to some of the others. It moves fairly quickly, and for a lot of people, their lives change in just a matter of moments.
No doubt about it, Kent. What you touched on it there. What are the coverage plans from LSU basketball, social media, LSUsports.net? You mentioned some of the people involved, but obviously we're putting out this podcast. But what else can fans expect from the LSU basketball official accounts?
Well, right now, back on our website at lsusports.net, we're rerunning a story from March the 9th that our fine young student writer, Harrison Valentine, put together, that he did a big dive into Cam's life and career. It's very well written. In fact, it won first place in the Louisiana Sports Writers Association contest for SIDs and media relations people, and you have the plaque right there. That is one of 3 that Harrison won in that contest for his writing. So we thought it deserved another run on our website on a couple of days here before the draft. So we'll have that. We'll have a big advance Wednesday evening. Looking ahead to the draft, we have some quotes from Cam after one of his workouts, and that we're going to share, and some other things. And then, like I say, we'll kind of settle in and see what the scuttlebutt is as we head into Thursday afternoon. And we'll be watching with everyone else. And once it hits that someone is drafted, we'll be keeping up with the team and keeping up with the progress of where they're headed after the announcement is made, and what quotes and press conferences they may have coming up. So we'll be on top of things through the end of the week, because then the free agent signings and wherever they're drafted, there'll be press conferences usually on Friday that we'll be following as well.
No question about it. And that's one of the fortunate consequences of having a successful basketball program, is that you're busy on draft night, but you wouldn't have it any other way. I know it's a Hall of Famer in Kent Lowe, and a Hall of Fame work ethic, and just a great night for LSU basketball. It's going to be a big day for Cam, for Javonte, for Trendon, whatever paths they take. Super excited to see where those guys go, because as you said at the beginning, it can take you anywhere. I mean, look at Duop Reith, right? Like, we didn't even mention him because it's not necessarily NBA, but we mentioned Jarrell. Jarrell's over in Australia, and now Duop with the Australian national team having success at the Olympics.
Yeah, and he played for 3 years in the Serbian League, and just last month he signed a brand new contract with the Hawks of the National Basketball League in Australia. So he'll be playing full-time professionally in Australia this coming year. So very happy for him. I think he can do very well in that league.
Yep, the boot up movement going global. Duop Reith having a lot of success at the Olympics, and from Duop to a bunch of guys, and now with he was there in Coach Wade's first year too, and now you've got Javonte and Trendon and Cam getting ready for the draft. So it never stops. It's an exciting time. Thank you so much for your time, Kent, giving us a little insight into the behind-the-scenes machinations, and we're excited for Thursday.
All right. Thanks, Cody.